The Kahr MK9 Limited 9mm pistol. How does this all-steel compact or maybe even ultra-compact pistol stack up against the competitors? And why did I buy the Kahr? And how's the trigger? And oh, what's with those sights? I'm going to answer all those questions coming up. Stick around. I want to welcome you to Riders Range. So today we're going to take a look at the Kahr MK9. This is a limited edition, and it's in all black. And this is not to be confused with the 25th anniversary limited edition that came out not that long ago. This particular gun was actually built back in 1998. There were only 2 runs of the limiteds made. The first fewer than 100 were made in 98. They did another run of 100 or so in late 2001. And again, that's not counting the 25th anniversary edition. So we got this originally back when we first got the Kimber EVO. Just happened to come across this on one of the auction sites. It was a local sale, and couldn't resist the price and the fact that it would be an interesting comparison with the EVO. So I picked it up, and it's been sitting in the safe most of the time since. We did shoot it a little bit when we first got it, and we'll talk about shooting it here in just a little bit. I haven't seen any of the limiteds on the auction site, and as you can see, there's scratches on this thing. It's again, it's a 1998 gun. It's been around the block a few times, so it certainly is not in pristine condition on the outside. But again, an all-steel gun, it does still continue to function quite well. There are very few MK9s on the auction sites, weren't even listed anywhere right now that I can find, and the few that are up there are running anywhere from $750 to $1,000. I paid substantially less than that entry-level price even for this limited, but again, it certainly isn't perfect. And this one does have XS, that's XS, not XS, but XS, big dot sights. We're going to talk more about those when we get into the shooting portion. That is an interesting discussion. This gun is a 6+1 with the standard flush magazine. You can also get an extended magazine for the 9mm MK9 that is a 7+1. So again, nothing outstanding in the way of capacity. And so it does have a much heavier recoil spring than in most of the other similar sized guns that I have. So not something that somebody with any kind of physical limitations is going to want to pick up as a gun that they'd have to actually work the action on. Nothing real fancy about this from any other Kahr. It's just a slab-sided, steel-framed pistol that has plastic type grips on it. Now there still are companies making other grips for this. You can get them in G10. There are even a couple of companies that still make wood grips for these. Rear cocking serrations, no forward cocking serrations at all. Nothing particularly fancy about the barrel. It's not super crowned or anything. Does not have ambidextrous controls. Has only 2 controls on it. And that is the slide stop lever and the magazine release, and neither of these, as far as I know, can have the sides switched on them, so you're stuck with having to manipulate those from the perspective of a right-hand shooter. 6-round magazine does fit flush, relatively flush, sticks out just a little bit. It does eject from the gun fairly easy. 7-round mag. Gives you that extra room for the little finger on there. In fact, I can actually just get 3 fingers on this gun with a 7-round mag. 6-round, obviously, I can't do it. 7-round looks a little funny, but with a 6-round, it's strictly a 2-fingered gun. Now, when people first pick up the Kahr, they seem to think that this is it's a double action type gun, as opposed to most of the firearms now, with the exception of the Kimber Solo and a couple others that are more of a single action that seem cocked. The fact that there's a fairly long trigger pull on this, almost like a revolver, makes one initially think that it's double action. However, the internals of this are not that dissimilar from a lot of the other Wonder 9s, the striker-fired guns, in that the striker is under a fairly significant amount of tension all the time, and pulling the trigger on it only defeats internal safeties, but it works a camming action that provides the last little bit of travel for that striker and actually then fires the gun. And if you can see it in that one or not, there's very little over travel, but there's a long reset. You just can't even hear it or feel it most of the time. And then there's some take up before you start to get to that what feels like a double action pull, and then it breaks, and again, no over travel on this particular one. So it feels like a double action, but it's not. That's because of the camming action on the inside gives the trigger a totally different feel. But it still has the striker under spring tension, just like most of the other striker-fired guns. So I mentioned this is a steel frame gun, and when you weigh this with a magazine with 6 rounds in it, and one more for the chamber, this comes out to 27.3 ounces. Now that's rather on the heavy side. That's putting it really close to something like the Kimber Ultra Carry, which is only going to be about 3 ounces heavier, and you get 2 more rounds out of that, plus you get the nice 1911 single action type trigger pull. This puts it just a hair more than the Springfield XDs, a little bit more than the SIG 365 at 23.7 ounces for the SIG, but remember that SIG is a 10+1 gun, not a 6+1. And I said I got this to compare with the Kimber EVO, and we'll put a link to the EVO video up here. And there are a lot of similarities between this and the EVO, and they're actually not that far off in weight. 24.3 ounces versus 27.3. So the EVO is a little bit lighter, but again, it's an aluminum frame gun instead of steel. EVO is obviously a longer barrel, therefore longer sight radius. It's just about the same thickness. Maybe the EVO is a hair thinner than the Kahr, and so again, it's a different gun. Now the trigger on the EVO is totally different too. This one is about 95% cocked and a very, very nice trigger in the EVO. But again, this is not about the EVO. This is about the Kahr and how do they stack up. When you put them side by side, there's really not that much difference other than the barrel length on the EVO. A more accurate comparison might be with the, well, some people might compare it with the Glock 43, and again, size-wise, Glock's going to be just a little bit bigger, but a little bit narrower. But others might compare it with the Kimber Solo. Same general type of trigger pull on the Solo, except even lighter yet. Now the Kahr breaks very consistently at a little more than 6 pounds. The Solo has a similar type of feel on the trigger. It almost feels like a double action, but not quite. And this one is about a 3.5 pound pull. So it's almost a single action feel with a single action weight with a double action type trigger. Now, of course, this one does have a lot of over travel, and still can't really feel or hear the reset. Now, of course, the Solo also has a manual safety on it. But here's where the differences are. The Solo is a thinner gun. The Solo is about the same length, and not quite as tall. Really close. Same capacity, 6+1. Although again, the Solo, you can get an extended mag, which looks kind of hokey in this gun, and the Solo has a true ambidextrous magazine release, which you can work from either side of the gun without having to change anything. But again, not a comparison video with the Solo, although the Solo is the one that I would most likely compare. And of course, the Solo comes in at about 20 ounces, so it's the lightest loaded gun of all of those which I'd make the comparison with. So is this a good pocket gun? Well, it'll fit in a pocket holster with the trigger guard covered, so you could carry it that way. But again, at more than 27 ounces loaded with 6+1, it certainly wouldn't be my first choice for a pocket gun. So the question is, does the ease of shooting with that nice smooth 6+ pound trigger, by the way, there's no double strike capability on this like you have on some others once it's been fired, because the striker's not cocked by the trigger like it might be on some others. You don't get second strike capability, but I don't put a whole lot of stock in second strike anyway. So it does have a nice smooth action. It shoots relatively nicely. It feels good. Steel frame gun, it should. But how does it work? There's a couple of things that get in the way of how this MK9 works. The trigger is certainly not one of them. It's got, again, a nice trigger that I can get used to. The sights on this, though, are absolutely atrocious. These XS, again, XS, not XS, big dot sights are, according to the XS website, they do enhance sight acquisition, particularly in all light conditions, but also in low light. It's the ultimate flash sight picture, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it certainly is not one that is good for accuracy. For quick social distance shots, yeah, okay, you put the ball right on top the line in the rear, and yeah, it's probably okay. However, there is absolutely no way to get good precision sight alignment on this without really working at it. Certainly not like conventional sights would be. This gun, well, when we first took it out, when we first got this gun, we patterned it at 15 yards, of course, and it is shooting high. Even when I balance that ball right on the rear sight, it's high, so I've actually got to bury it a little bit in order to get the shots down where I want them. But actually the windage left and right is fairly decent on this. We struggled on every distance on our range. The 12-yard plates, not something I could hit quickly with this gun, whereas I certainly can with most others. 25 yards, the 12-inch plate most of the time, the torso all the time. The 8-inch plate not so much at 25 yards. Again, a year ago or now, still struggled with both of them. Reaching out to 50 yards, I occasionally hit one of the plates out there, but that was pure luck. I missed more than I hit. So this is definitely not something that I would want to rely on. There are so many better options out there. You know, even the Kimber EVO. We actually did a comparison with this and the Kimber Ultra Carry, and this turned out to be a very nice shooting gun, and it's a slimmer gun, a little better sight radius. Well, sight radius itself is actually about the same, but the barrel is just a hair longer. At 21.6 ounces, just a hair heavier than the Solo, quite a bit lighter than the Kahr. Of course, it is an aluminum frame gun. Has that nice single action trigger, does have a safety on it. So when I'm looking for a pocket gun, I'm going with the MK9 or even the Solo. You can badmouth the Solo, I know, but mine still works fine. Not doing that with the Kahr. I'd even take the Glock 43 over the Kahr MK9 at this point. So to me, it's more of a novelty. The sights are absolutely terrible. The gun is reliable. It fed everything that I ran through it. Didn't have any hiccups with it. It again, really reliable. Just, it's a me to you gun. It's not anything beyond that. So that's a look at the Kahr MK9 Limited 6+1 or 7+1 steel framed, with a trigger that feels like double action but isn't. And if you want a gun like this, I strongly suggest you replace those sights. If you like this video, we do appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, click on the notifications bell so you know what's coming up on Riders Range. YouTube seems to not be promoting our videos much, so we need all the help we can get with the algorithm, and you can do that by sharing this video with whatever platform you're available on. Comments down below on this video also help with the algorithm, so we appreciate comments. Comments on anything else to info@ridersrange.com. And again, a look at the Kahr MK9 Limited steel 9mm subcompact pistol. I want to thank you for stopping by Riders Range.